Hi, my name is Eve Albrecht, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the supplies for my painting a portrait with 3 colors using the Zorn palette. And I decided to do a little video because I think it's helpful to kind of know what you're going to be doing in the workshop and maybe get set up a little bit before or maybe practice. The reason why I wanted to do the Zorn palette is because there are only 3 colors. A lot of times when we start painting, we choose a teacher and because we like their palette, and we get lots and lots of colors. And that's great. I love it. I love paint, obviously. But when we're doing portraits, there's a whole lot going on. Well, just like every kind of painting. But I've tried to simplify it and get the simplest way to be able to achieve a flesh tone. Because you can use so many different colors, but if you intermix them, when you're a beginner, it gets a bit muddled and it can get muddy. I'm sure you've heard of that term before. And what I found with the Zorn palette is it helped my students understand how to make a flesh tone faster, better, and more accurate. So I'm all about doing it faster. I've taught this class and workshop several times, and every time I seem to streamline it a little bit more. And so I'm hoping that this will help you to get sorted out for the class and also to, practice with it in the future. Sometimes when you take a workshop, you forget what you learned. I often do. There's so much information. So this is always for you to keep to use. All right, so we've got all set up here, and I've got my supplies. The first thing in the workshop that we're going to do is mix colors. And we're doing that to get the practice of how to slightly shift a color so it's a little bit warmer, or a little bit cooler, or a little bit lighter, or a little bit darker. Those are the 4 things that you're always going to be saying to yourself. It's your little painting mantra, and that will help guide you to know what you should do. But first of all, we're just going to slightly shift the colors lighter and cooler, and that will show you a little bit how to move the paint around, how much paint is needed. All right, so the very first time I taught this class, we started with our colors, the same colors I have here. We did investigate some other colors because there's about 100 different ways of using the Zorn palette. For those of you who don't know Zorn, I will be sending you a little blurb about him. He was a painter from long, long ago, 150 years ago possibly, who came from Sweden. He was primarily a landscape painter, and he wanted to start doing portrait painting or figure painting, and he was hanging out with his fellow artists, and they said, all right, well, to make it simple, just use 3 colors. And that was really great for him, and he made the most amazing paintings with it. The difficulty now to do the Zorn palette is that we don't have the same colors. So the red that he used back then is called vermilion. It's not the same red as we have today. So in preparing this palette, I tried to use many different colors. I called different companies, asking them what they thought would be as close to the vermilion of the old days and what they would recommend. A lot of those people who work at or most of the people who work at the art supply companies, especially the paint companies, are artists themselves, so they know what they're talking about. And so I did try to use different reds, but I find that Cad Red Light is the best in oil to get the appropriate color. And it's pretty much that same color in acrylics. Acrylics, of course, you do get a different tone, it's not the same, but it's close enough. So Cad Red Light is our red that we're going to be choosing. Now, the other colors are yellow ochre and ivory black, and of course white. So you see I have a range of different kind of paints here. Important, very important, is to use a very good quality white. It doesn't have to be the most expensive, but it really shouldn't be a cheaper version. So when I'm teaching in oils, I really like Gamblin colors because they're inexpensive or not too pricey, and they give you a lot of bang for your buck, a lot of good quality pigment. So you don't have to use as much as if you used a cheaper brand. I do like their 1980 brand, and for very beginner painters, I say yes, go for it. Use their 1980 brand, but the titanium white, it's okay, but I prefer, and especially for this, to use the pure Gamblin brand because there is more pigment into it. So 1980 brands, if you want to use that for the cad red, yellow ochre, or ivory black, that's fine. But the white, it should be Gamblin white. Other brands are fine if you've got Grumbacher. What is this one? This is Holbein. You know, there's just so many different colors of paints, that's fine. But stay away from any student grade. Student grade quality, they don't mix as well. There's other stuff in it, and I like more pure paint, and that's why I like to stick with Gamblin. It's just better that way. If you're using acrylics and you want to try this in acrylics, then I would use Liquitex or golden colors. And definitely with those colors, it would be best to use open products. So the open golden has already retarder in it, or you use the retarder gloss in every mixture. But the goal of what you'll be seeing today is we're going to be using these paints for the 2-day session. Acrylics will dry out really fast, so you need to have that retarder. But going back to oil, and that's primarily what we're going to be talking about. So we have the titanium white, so it can't be zinc white, it has to be titanium. Yellow ochre, and if you only have a little bit in the tube, try to get another tube, because if you add a different color in, not every yellow ochre is exactly the same. So it might change your mixtures if you need to make some more the next day, the second day. All right, so, and here's Cad Red Light. It's also Gamblin. Here's a Grumbacher. I'm just feeling the tube. This is a really old paint tube. Some people come to my classes and they have paint that's 35 years old, and I'm not joking. So you have to make sure that it is fluid and it's moving. It can't be too stiff, because then it's hard to move the paint. We're going to be doing a lot of mixing, and you'll see it. So make sure it's fresh paint, and like I said, Gamblin is very reasonably priced. Here's Ivory Black. Ivory Black is different than Mars Black or any other black, so definitely stick with that. This will be our blue color, so our cool color. So it's very important that you get the right one. Of course, there are different brands. This is a Richardson, which is quite inexpensive. Holbein, Gamblin has them. Again, stay away from student grade. For the second day, if our paints are getting a little gummy, a little tacky because they're drying out a little bit, then I have the Galka gel. It can come in a big tube. They also have smaller tubes that are about this size. This is the one that does have some solvent in it. They do have a solvent-free one, so if you don't like solvent, you can go for the solvent-free one. It's just to loosen it up a bit, and you'll see what I mean later on. So I do have turpentine, so not turpentine pure, so I do have odorless mineral spirits, and this is called Gamsol. So I have a little container for it. If you're new to art or painting and you don't want to invest in this little container, then you can use those gelato jars. They're plastic jars, a glass jar or a plastic one that definitely has a sealed lid. Sometimes you can take a smaller can, like a small tuna fish can, or I think cats eat out of little tuna fish things. Stab it in the back to make a little bit of movement on the back, and you can sink it down in the bottom of a glass or screw top jar, and that can be the same thing as this. And then you can pour your mineral spirits in it. I like Gamsol the best, but there is also Mona Lisa, which is really nice. and some other non-fuming products out there. Those are my three favorite brands. So Gamsol is my top favorite. I also like Mona Lisa, or maybe there's something with lemon in it, I can't remember, from Michael's. Nothing else, please, because it's very smelly. We're going to be wearing masks the whole time. And even without masks, it's just, I don't really like the smell. I'm very sensitive to odor. So this is another reason why I like these products. I have very bad allergies, and I really don't like to have too many solvent fumes. So besides this, it's also important to have some tape. We're going to be taping our photos up here. I'm going to supply the photos. I'm going to supply the plastic sheets. If you have any kind of board, it can be a poster board, but it should be a little bit thicker. This is a drawing board, but you can also have a gator board. It doesn't matter what color it is. It can be a scrap piece of board. There will be easels there, I believe, and if you have your favorite easel, you can bring your own. And we just need to put this on there because I like to be able to see when I'm painting right next to it. It's really important to get the right light, all right? Sometimes I even put my sometimes I even put my palette on top of here. So I'm seeing what I have here mixing is in the same exact light. And you'll notice that's a difference. Sometimes you're mixing and then you put it on the canvas and you're like, wow, that is a completely different color. And it depends on which light you're mixing in. So we've got our paints, very important because we're mixing so many paints. We need to look at our palette. So this is a palette. You can have a glass palette. This is a paper palette by Gray Matters. It's one of these things. I don't throw them away right away. I get a lot of use out of them. And you get a lot of use out of them if you use your other supply thing on the list, wet wipes. Not the sensitive ones because they don't clean up as well, but just plain ones. They're a great way to get your hands clean very fast. And then, you know, you can scrape your paint to the side and then wipe it down, and then it's going to be pretty clean and you're ready to go for the next day. The other thing that I really like, and it's going to be important, you can choose this or another product or make your own with a big Tupperware container. This is a Masterson palette seal. So when we're doing all of our mixtures, so for example, this is one that I had before. Sounds like a cooking show. You can put it in here and then close it up. This seals it. And the next day, it should be good still, ready to go. If you pop this into the freezer or the fridge, and I would recommend putting it in a plastic bag or a paper bag so you don't, you know, any kind of random paint that's on the side doesn't get on the inside of your freezer, that will help it stay even more moist. So we're making nice big piles of paint. You might be able to see this here. And we don't want to waste the paint, so that's why we put it in the freezer or the fridge overnight. But honestly, this palette seal works well either way. You can also use whatever method you feel like if you don't want to buy one of these. Okay, so this is what we're going to be mixing on. Again, if you have, there's many different things that you can mix on. I would not use a plastic palette unless it's the Weber ones that peel off. That's a special brand. Glass, there's some really great tempered glass or a sheet of glass. Just make sure you don't cut yourself and it's taped around and it has something gray underneath because it does matter. The more we are actually going to be painting our canvas gray or our panel, we're actually going to be painting our panel gray. So this is going to be more of a telltale sign of what that color will look like when we get it actually on our canvas, okay? So Masterson palette seal and the Gray Matters palette. What else do we have here? I will talk about brushes, very important. So again, if you have really old paint and you can't get them open, you might need some of these pliers, but I'll bring mine, of course. Again, make sure that paint is not too old. Very important, we're going to be doing lots of color mixing, so we need some palette knives. I suggest having two, a smaller one It's a little pointy. This is very pointy. It can be a little bit rounder on the end. They do have some plastic variations of these, like something like this, you know, that's a little small, maybe something like this. So those do exist and they're pretty cheap. These last forever and these break. So I think these are better. This is a teardrop shape. This is good for everything. It's a size 8, I believe, from, I don't know which brand this is, or is it says 22. But in your supply list, I'll actually say exactly what I buy, and so you can try and get something close. Just nothing too big because it's going to be mixing in with other things. So a little bit, this size is the biggest, and then maybe a little bit smaller one because sometimes we just want to move some paint around. All right, so brushes, really important to have good brushes. They don't have to be expensive. If you're local here in Ponte Vedra, then in Ponte Vedra there is the PV Arts and Crafts, and you can call them up and ask them their prices. They can pack it up all for you and deliver it to your car. And Ready Arts, exactly the same way. If you're from downtown in Jacksonville, Florida, they will do that for you. And so it's important to have good brushes. If you have a brush that doesn't bend, so you have to have a brush that bends like this, if you can see it right here, it really has to have some movement. So I'm just checking mine to see, because the way to keep them soft and pliant is to wash them first with mineral spirits, and then you can wash them with Dawn dishwashing liquid. But you see my brushes move, and so you need a variety of brushes. I've got some medium-sized brushes. I prefer a little bit longer brush. I use a lot, as you see here, of long flats. I do have some filberts. Here's a filbert. Basically, the only difference is it's rounded on the edge. I have some little tiny brushes here. This is silver white 1 round, because we're going to need to, depending on which painting you're going to be able to do, right in the eyes and that sort of area, the nostril, lips, ear, you're going to need a little bit smaller of a brush. So I have a selection of brushes here, and then I have one big brush because we are going to make our canvas gray, so you're going to need a big brush so that you can spread it nice and evenly. So that's what this is for. Optional is to have a skewer. We're not going to be measuring anything in this class, but it's also good. We're going to be tracing, so you can use the edge of that or the back of your handle, or you can use a pencil or a pen. Either way, but these are really good if you ever want to do life drawing. These are awesome tools to use. Okay, so we have our brushes. Of course, some gloves are nice. Any glove you want. We just happened to get a whole bunch of these. These gloves just came in a really big box, so I use these. My preferred glove is the blue nitrile glove. I'm not sure I have one here because they were so hard to get for a long time, but I do prefer the blue nitrile gloves because they don't make you sweat as much. So, all right, so we have this, and we've got our baby wipes to clean up, paper towels. Love these Viva paper towels or Blue Shop towels. There's not a lot of bumps, you know, because some of the paper towels like this one, this is a Bounty or I don't know, maybe a generic brand, there's a lot of bumps on it, and it fluffs up a lot. And if you're trying to clean something off, some of the fluff might get into your paint. So I would say Viva is the best. Blue Shop towels are the second best.